Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump warned that the U.S. could support another major strike on Iran. That is, if Tehran resumes building its ballistic missile or nuclear weapons programs. Minnesota officials and a daycare manager denied fraud allegations. This comes after a viral video appears to show widespread fraud in the state. A federal judge has cleared ICE to access limited Medicaid data on illegal immigrants, while blocking broader use as legal challenges continue. National Guard to be deployed in New Orleans for New Year's Eve events, but they will not be engaging in immigration enforcement. The New York City government is prepared to keep millions of tourists safe during its New Year's Eve celebrations. Mayor Eric Adams made safety announcements for the event. If you think your deposit box at the bank is safe, think again. That's what hundreds of customers in Germany discovered after thieves broke into the vault room of their bank. Millions of dollars worth of valuables could be lost.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. President Trump warned the U.S. could support another major strike on Iran. That's if Tehran resumes building its ballistic missile or nuclear weapons programs after a massive strike in June. Here's what the president said after a meeting with the Israeli prime minister yesterday.
I hope they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup.
Iran said last week that it had conducted missile exercises for the second time this month.
Iran may be behaving badly. It hasn't been confirmed, but if it's confirmed, look, they know the consequences. Consequences will be very powerful.
Trump made a statement after a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. The Israeli prime minister said last week that he was not seeking a confrontation with Iran, but was aware of the reported exercises and said he would raise Tehran's activities with Trump. The president also said he wanted to move to the second phase of the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. He urged Hamas to disarm or face severe consequences.
Well, we talked about Hamas and we talked about disarmament, and they're going to be given a very short period of time to disarm, and we'll see how that works out. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be in charge of that from our side, but if they don't disarm, as they agreed to do, they agreed to it, and then they'll be held to pay for them.
Israel and Hamas accuse each other of breaching the deal. Hamas, which has refused to disarm, has been reasserting its control as Israeli troops remain entrenched in about half the territory. Israel has indicated that if Hamas is not disarmed peacefully, it will resume military action to make it do so.
Protests against the Islamic regime in Iran are intensifying. People are taking to the streets, complaining about the devaluation of Iran's currency. The chief of Iran's central bank has already resigned. Hyperinflation in Iran has gotten so bad, Iranians change the way their currency works. They keep removing zeros from their banknotes, while also changing the name of the currency. Otherwise, the price of everyday items will be in the millions. Eyewitness video released today shows people walking down the street and chanting during demonstrations. People in Iran are increasingly saying they're not happy with the Islamic regime, which took control of the country in the late 70s. Especially young Iranians wish for more freedom and liberties. Staying in the Middle East, the United Arab Emirates says it is voluntarily withdrawing its last remaining military forces from Yemen. Here's more.
The UAE announced today that it has ended its counter-terrorism units in Yemen, the only remaining forces it had in the country. The move comes after Saudi Arabia bombed a southern port city in Yemen earlier in the day. Saudi Arabia says it targeted a shipment of weapons that arrived from the UAE to support separatist forces. Saudi Arabia also demanded that the UAE forces leave Yemen within 24 hours. Yemen has been at war since 2014, when the Iran-backed Houthis seized the capital. Saudi Arabia and the UAE entered the war as partners against the Houthis, but have since backed competing allies. The UAE supports the Southern Transitional Council, which seeks to restore an independent South Yemen. Saudi Arabia backs the central government and allied tribal forces.
The mayor of New Orleans says the National Guard will be deployed in the city through Mardi Gras. A terror attack killed 14 people during New Year's celebrations last year. A man deliberately drove a pickup truck into a crowd of revelers in what authorities called an ISIS-inspired attack. Mayor Latoya Cantel spoke at a press briefing yesterday. Let's take a listen.
The National Guard, as you know, are expected to be in our city and in partnership with the city through Mardi Gras. Okay, so that is something that we do know, and we absolutely are welcoming of those added resources.
City officials said nearly 800 state and federal law enforcement officials will be downtown in New Orleans' French Quarter. New Orleans police spokesperson Reese Harper said the National Guard will not be engaging in immigration enforcement. A federal judge in California has ruled that immigration authorities may access limited Medicaid data on illegal immigrants. The ruling yesterday says federal law allows the health department to share basic biographical, contact, and location information with ICE for enforcement purposes. However, the judge blocked access to more detailed medical or benefits data, saying ICE failed to clearly justify why it was needed. More than 20 states had asked the court to block the data sharing, arguing it could discourage immigrants from seeking emergency medical care and strain state health systems. The ruling applies only to the states involved in the lawsuit and could change as the case continues. Allegations of massive fraud targeting federal programs in Minnesota continue to mount. Federal investigators are now going door to door at suspected fraud sites like daycare centers. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Homeland Security investigators are on the ground in Minneapolis going door to door at suspected fraud sites. The department says it's looking into fraud allegedly happening at child care and healthcare facilities and other suspected sites, adding that it's working to root out what it calls rampant fraud plaguing Minnesota. And this is a multi-agency operation. On Sunday, FBI Director Kash Patel says he's surging resources to Minnesota to investigate fraud in federal programs. And he says that his department has been working to crack down on this kind of fraud for years. But Patel says that this is just the tip of a very large iceberg. He says that many of the accused are also being referred to immigration officials for possible deportation and denaturalization. And this comes after a recent viral video put Minnesota's fraud schemes in the spotlight. Independent journalist Nick Shirley published a recent 40-minute video of him visiting multiple daycare centers with no children in sight and some even having blacked out windows. And these centers allegedly receiving millions of dollars in federal funding.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question. Are there children?
Attorney General Pam Bondi took to X on Monday, saying Nick Shirley's work has helped show Americans the scale of fraud in Tim Walz's Minnesota. The Justice Department has been investigating this for months. So far, we have charged 98 individuals, 85 of Somali descent, and more than 60 have been found guilty in court. A spokesperson for Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says that the governor has strengthened oversight and launched investigations into these facilities, one of which has been closed. But for now, federal authorities say stay tuned as there's more to come out soon from these investigations. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Now, with heightened scrutiny, the manager of Quality Learning Center opened up and rejected the fraud allegations. Listen.
Being a business owner is extremely tough. Trying to raise kids that are not yours, that are others, is extremely tough as well. But then for people to come and go like, hey, they're not really working, they're just taking free money. If any of us have children here, raising children is not easy. Trying to help them with schoolwork, trying to build their manners is not easy work. So when somebody comes and does that, it's really disheartening.
Ibrahim Ali said Shirley's video misrepresented the facility. Ali laid out the center's operating hours and noted that they primarily service after-school children. He accused Shirley of coming outside operating hours. Ali was standing outside the building in front of a misspelled banner, which was missing the N in learning, which he addressed. He said the person they hired misspelled it and the banner is being fixed. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says agents are on the ground in Minneapolis going door to door at suspected fraud sites. Joining us to discuss is Tony Kinnett, national correspondent at the Daily Signal and host of the Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. So Tony, good to have you here. We all saw that video, right, by independent journalist Nick Shirley, showing what appears to be like fraud occurring in daycare centers in Minnesota. And because of that, I think we're seeing national backlash over this situation. You know, the video getting over 120 million views in just a couple days. Shirley alleges they were able to cover over $110 million in fraud in one day. Were you surprised by what you saw in that video?
Unfortunately, Don, no, I wasn't. As a former educator, someone who worked in the public education system, someone who worked a lot in the education grant system, both as an education policy advisor for Governor Walker in Wisconsin, and then, of course, running chalkboard review after my time in the Indiana and Wisconsin education systems. This kind of fraud is rather typical in areas where the terms of equity and inclusion are put above kind of common sense. So the backlash from those on the left, let's say, to Nick Shirley's investigation has been rather interesting. People have tried to claim that the Quality Luring Center had at one point closed back in July, and he had obfuscated that. He didn't. And then they said, actually, no, it was open last week, and then it wasn't. Now, apparently, it's only open for 2 hours a day. There were kids there yesterday, but not today. That's not at all in conjunction with the Minneapolis public school systems. There's a lot of weird stuff here that is just getting millions and millions of federal grant dollars that you're paying for. And then also on top of that, Tim Walz has pushed a lot of effective measures through, effective in the financial sense, on increasing Minnesota taxes to go to these facilities as well. No one's checking, no one's looking, and it is a national issue, not just in Minnesota.
Okay, Tony, I just want to be clear here. Are you saying that DEI policies in part is contributing to this fraud situation?
Unequivocally, without a doubt. When you put the idea that someone's skin color or someone's language that they speak means that they are entitled to special privileges here in the United States, then that ends up covering up for a lot of things like fraud. When you say, hey, you come from this other place, you must have had it really bad, so we're going to give you money, we're going to give you housing, we're going to give you free transportation, and then we're just going to trust that you'll take care of it. What we found in the Minnesota Somali migrant community are a group of individuals who did not come to this country, did not assimilate, did not adopt its values, but instead have utilized fraud all the way from political campaigns to healthcare, to education, to real estate, to restaurant, to charity, to non-governmental organization. It is without a doubt the largest, most coordinated fraud scandal in the history of this country. It makes the Teapot Dome scandal of the late 1800s and early 1900s look like child's play.
Tony, where does accountability lie?
Accountability lies in two places. First of all, it lies in the community. So when you are part of a community and you turn a blind eye to active fraud that is hurting those around you, you are part of the problem. If I am part of a small community, let's take it back to the South in the late 1800s. If there was an individual who was innocent that was being persecuted based along racial lines, you have a duty as an individual to stand up for those in your community. You are a citizen of the United States, which means you have a responsibility to flag authorities when the law is being violated. So the first measure of accountability is finding out those who turned a blind eye to things like this, whether that be someone in the community or adjacent to the community. Second, those who are in law enforcement and leadership in the Minneapolis and greater Twin Cities areas need to be held accountable. They need to be banned from public service, and there need to be charges, both state and federal, filed. And yes, that includes Governor Tim Walz, who has continued to funnel money in. He targeted the state's legislative auditor. There's an auditor position that the legislature of the Minnesota state government appoints. Tim Walz cut that person off at the knees a couple of years ago when they started to ask questions about this. And he was almost the vice president of the United States. There is a serious level of accountability failure in the DNC politically, but also in the Minnesota state governor all the way up to Tim Walz.
So you're saying the community and officials both hold a responsibility. So let me ask you this. What would being held to account look like in this situation?
Well, first of all, I would believe that any individual who is here that is not a citizen of the United States that either participated or knew about this fraud needs to be shipped back home immediately. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what color you are. If you are part of an organization, if you are part of a community and you are here illegally or you're here in a temporary status and you either aided and abetted or knew of and chose not to say anything about the rampant fraud that took place here, sorry, you're clearly not interested in assimilating in the United States. Get out. Number two, if you are someone who has come here to the United States and you are a citizen and you're an immigrant from another country, and then you have dishonored, you have broken the oath you took to the United States Constitution, I believe you should be denaturalized and you should be sent home as well. If you are a citizen of the United States, a native citizen, and you participated in this fraud, the maximum prison sentence and a disbarment from any public service for the rest of your life at a bare minimum. Because there are people who are freezing and starving in the state of Minnesota who do need aid, who are both natural U.S. citizens and naturalized U.S. citizens who do need services that now they may not have full access to because that money was stolen.
Okay, I just want to follow up on that point. You're saying that there are, in fact, people in Minnesota who need aid. Your comments on whether welfare system in Minnesota is overly generous or not?
I don't think it's an issue of the term overly generous per se, but money that is taken and then given needs to be accounted for and needs to be looked after. This is one of the reasons why I encourage local community charity organizations and private charities, is because there's a level of natural accountability that goes along with those things. Whereas when it becomes a level that you can meet, that you can then go to the state for a check, you don't usually find the state doing as good of a job keeping an eye on where those dollars go and what they're used for. This is where we get a lot of the EBT and the SNAP benefit fraud that Minnesota refused to turn data over to the federal government over. And that is disrespectful. That's disrespectful to the people of Minnesota or any state people whose government monopolizes some type of a welfare system. I'm not opposed to the idea of a safety net for any kind of community or state network, a jurisdiction perhaps, but it needs to be held accountable. Essentially, you need people to watch where those dollars are going, and those need to be transparently recorded.
Okay, Tony, just one last thing. Your comments on the governor's remarks on this situation. He said, quote, this was on my watch. I am accountable for this. And more importantly, I am the one that will fix it. What does he need to do?
I mean, it's really easy to come in hindsight 2020 and say, oh, gee, I didn't know all of this fraud was going on, except there's evidence that I did. And the buck stops with me. He doesn't actually say, I'm sorry, or excuse me, in the Minnesota parlance, I'm sorry. He doesn't come out and suggest that he's going to right these wrongs by addressing some of the root causes. Instead, he's called those who ask questions about this particular issue white supremacists. Again, if we can, obviously say he should resign, obviously he should submit himself for both state and federal investigation. That would be the moral thing to do. But this is the individual who considered it a cultural import to put tampons in boys' bathrooms in public schools. So I'm not really sure that we can expect that from Tim Walz anytime soon.
Well, all right, Tony, it's always good to speak with you. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Don.
If you think your deposit box at the bank is safe, think again. That's what hundreds of customers in Germany discovered after thieves broke into the vault room of their bank. Millions of dollars worth of valuables could be lost. Snow hits upstate New York as the National Weather Service issues a winter weather warning until New Year's Eve, with some areas expecting up to 3 feet of snow. More news after this break.
Buying or selling a home has gotten hard. Inventory is tight and interest rates are high. Making a move can be scary. That's why who you work with matters. I partner with HomeLight to help our clients win in any situation. Our buyers find great deals on their dream homes, and our sellers get top dollar even in a challenging market. HomeLight gives our clients the edge they need, and together, we all win.
Hi, my name is Brady. When I was born, my parents thought everything was okay. My mom and dad were so excited to take me home.
I still get goosebumps telling this story. Several days in, his skin started to become very cold and clammy. We noticed that he had become blue around his mouth, and something was just very off.
We packed up as fast as we could.
Brady stopped breathing twice on the way to the pediatrician. And that was one of the #1 things that just haunts me to this day.
I was born with a congenital heart defect called aortic coarctation. If my parents waited just 1 more hour to drive me to the hospital, I would not be here today. But thanks to research funded by the American Heart Association, I had heart surgery that saved my life. But not every kid is as lucky as me, which is why we need your help. Just call the number on the screen or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help. Get people trained in CPR. Get more hospitals certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. And help fund the next medical breakthroughs to help save kids like me.
When you donate to the American Heart Association, you're helping save lives like my son. And now my son is happy and healthy thanks to the support of people like you.
When you call with your $19 a month, you'll get this really cool t-shirt as a thank you. Many children die from congenital heart defects. I can't wait to grow up to become a heart surgeon and fix babies' hearts, but until then, I'll keep helping the American Heart Association. So please join me. Just call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org to become a monthly donor and help save lives.
Restaurant quality pho with no wait. In just 4 minutes, you get bold, authentic Vietnamese flavor with Pholicious. Available in beef or chicken. Crafted from real beef tallow or chicken, it's comforting and full of tradition. Just add your favorite fresh extras. Every bowl comes packed with everything you need for the ultimate pho experience and ready in minutes. Bring the bold, authentic flavors of Vietnam straight to your home. Pholicious is now available at Walmart or walmart.com.
A harsh winter storm is expected to bring strong winds and heavy snow across the Great Lakes and the Northeast today. That's after a bomb cyclone yesterday traveled across the Midwest, bringing cold weather and leaving tens of thousands without power. A mix of rain and snow also hit parts of the Northeast, with freezing rain reported in parts of northern New York. Forecasters warned the ice could strain power lines and trees. And in Vermont, the Highway Patrol responded to 92 crashes overnight. The National Weather Service has issued a winter storm warning for northern New York until tomorrow. Here's more on the weather warning and the gripping of it of the North and the Northeast.
Winter weather continues today. More snow is piling onto existing drifts in the Great Lakes region. Forecasters say this week's totals could reach 3 feet in some areas. Many Americans across the country also face bitter cold today. That follows days of brutal storms in the northeastern quadrant of the U.S. Meteorologists say blizzard conditions made it hard to see in some Midwestern areas.
I mean, you know, road's up here somewhere. We're just going to kind of winging it.
Officials report hundreds of accidents on affected roadways. Michigan State Police say at least 20 cars and semi-trucks were in this pileup in Detroit. Some New Englanders also are grappling with recent snow and ice up to ½ an inch thick. Down south, the National Weather Service says parts of West Texas had a winter storm warning last night. Even some travelers outside storm areas say they've been affected.
It got delayed, then it got canceled. Then we got a notification saying that there were no flights going in and out for 2 days. Just so many people here that are traveling, delays with the weather, going up north.
FlightAware reports more than 900 U.S. cancellations and over 9,000 delays yesterday.
I would say get to the airport on time, relax. Things get be patient. Things get complicated at times, and just be prepared for slight delays.
Big news in healthcare. The Trump administration has launched a $50 billion rural health transformation program. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the initiative, which aims to reverse decades of declining rural health services.
The Trump administration plans to distribute between around $150 million and $280 million each state in 2026. The nationwide program is designed to improve access to medical care in rural areas and is part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The $50 billion will be spread over 5 fiscal years, making $10 billion available annually from 2026 through 2030 to all 50 states. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Administrator Mehmet Oz unveiled the plan yesterday.
Our hope is that we all get healthier in America and no longer will allow zip code dictate our life expectancy.
Oz says the system will be audited every year.
We're going to ask you to do even better than the year before. And for the folks who do a great job, they're going to give even more money. And the folks who don't deliver what they promise, they might get some money taken away from them to give to the guys who are doing a great job. So this is a competition. America loves a competition.
Innovation takes center stage.
Already have so many brilliant ideas, from drones delivering medications to people being able to practice at the height of their licensure, like nurses and pharmacists, to robotic systems to allow us to ultrasound moms who have babies or in their belly, but they're in remote areas.
West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey applauded the Trump administration for the program, calling it a needle mover.
This is really going to allow us to help improve healthcare in rural communities, whether you're talking about diabetes or COPD or a number of other disease states. We have a chance to get a lot of our people healthier.
Morrissey says the aim is to create a virtuous circle.
Healthier people, more productivity in the workforce, more people overall in the workforce, and then a stronger economy with a higher standard of living.
Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen reacted, saying President Trump's commitment to rural economic revitalization is real, and today's announcement is proof. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey says making America healthy again begins in rural America, and that she looks forward to being able to improve health care across the state. This rural push aligns with Trump's fiscal 2026 skinny budget for the Department of Health and Human Services. Those reforms combine multiple agencies into a new administration for a healthy America. The agency integrates rural programs and redirects any savings to Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s priorities, including environmental health, mental health services, and chronic disease prevention. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Republicans are hoping to reclaim a state Senate supermajority in a special election today in Iowa. Voters in Iowa State Senate District 16 are choosing a replacement for Democratic Senator Claire Celsey, who died in October. Democrat Renee Hardman is facing Republican Lucas Lofton in a race that could shift the balance of power in the chamber. Republicans currently hold the 33 seats to Democrats' 17. A GOP win would restore their supermajority that was lost in an August special election. Hardman says she's focused on affordability issues like childcare, housing, and healthcare. Lofton is campaigning on lowering taxes and easing cost of living pressures. The district has recently swung between parties, making the outcome uncertain. A Texas man is facing federal terrorism charges for allegedly trying to support the ISIS terror group. The Justice Department says 21-year-old John Michael Garza attempted to provide material support to the terror group through an undercover agent. Prosecutors allege Garza shared a bomb-making instruction and bought explosive components to a meeting, and as well sent cryptocurrency he believed would fund ISIS activities. FBI Director Kash Patel says agents identified the threat early and stopped it before anyone was hurt. Patel called the man's alleged actions radical Islamic terrorism. Garza was arrested after months of online monitoring and is now charged with attempting to support a foreign terrorist organization. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is staying busy until his last day. Today, he and the police commissioner addressed the public about keeping the city safe during its New Year's Eve celebrations.
Mayor Eric Adams and the New York City Police Department are working to have another safe New Year's Eve celebration all the way up to his last day in office.
And we're looking forward to the ball drop as we stand on the eve of the ball drop. People will start lining up early in the day, and they're here throughout the entire day to hold their spot. And we want everyone to have a great time and spend lots of money. For those of you who are tourists here, spend money in the city of New York. You're a tourist? Spend money.
This year's police detail is bigger than last year's, with the entirety of the New York City Police Department working in between December 31st and January 1st.
We will also deploy dedicated pickpocket teams, hotel response teams, and additional uniformed patrols to address quality of life and public safety concerns. There will be assets that you will see and others that you will not see.
Mayor Adams mentioned that there are no specific or credible threats regarding the New Year's Eve celebrations in Times Square, but they are operating at a heightened threat level.
While people are here to enjoy, it's a group effort that involves interagency communications and coordination, but I want to assure everyone maintaining a safety posture here during this celebration is something that we're focused on.
The ball test was successful today. This year's New Year's Eve ball is set to be dropped going into the first day of the year. Along with Monday's confetti test, this year's Times Square New Year's party should be a big one. The ball drop has been a tradition in Times Square since the first drop in 1907. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Panic and anger in Germany as customers discovered that their bank's vault room was broken into. Police say thieves stole some $35 million worth of valuables from deposit boxes.
I didn't sleep last night. No information is coming out. No one is coming out. All they need to do is put up a sign which safe deposit boxes are affected. Not everyone is affected, but there is no information. They are not coming outside. It's sad. It will be a bloody new year, to put it bluntly.
German police announced today that thieves broke into the vault room of the Sparkasse Savings Bank in a western city. They broke open over 3,000 safe deposit boxes and made away with some $35 million worth of stolen cash, gold, and jewelry. Police said the robbers drilled into the underground vault from a parking garage. Authorities added that the break-in was very professional and believed it lasted much of the weekend. The heist was not discovered until Monday. Angry customers gathered in front of the bank today to demand answers, but were not allowed to enter. Each deposit box has roughly $12,000 insurance value, but some customers said their deposit was worth much more than that. The thieves are still at large. The U.S. hit an area in Venezuela where boats are loaded with drugs. This marks the first known instance that the U.S. military carried out land attacks there. We speak to senior investigative reporter for the Epoch Times, Joshua Phillip, after the break. Russia doubles down on its claims of an attempted attack on President Putin's residence, what a spokesman said when asked about physical evidence of the attack. Stay tuned for more news after this.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is vaping? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. Yeah, you didn't even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutVaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
My name's Stacy, I'm 57, and I was adopted in 2020.
We were adopted in 2019.
And we were adopted in 2021.
We had a house, and it sounds crazy, but it wasn't a home. The one thing that Jake and Emma brought is it became a home.
When I met Dakota, he had just turned 14.
You weren't there for the first this and the first that. I missed the first words, but we got a lot of other firsts.
Watching her say, oh my God, I cannot believe I got my license. And she's like, I passed. And I'm like, girl.
See them grow. It is...
They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
You and you. Kids in the middle.
What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete, but it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
New developments in Venezuela. President Trump said yesterday the U.S. knocked out a loading facility linked to Venezuelan drug boats sometime before December 26th. Take a look.
There was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. They load the boats up with drugs. So we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement, and that is no longer around.
Trump says the move was part of Washington's ongoing campaign against vessels carrying narcotics to the United States. The president said the site that was hit was along the shore, but didn't say which military branch or intelligence agencies were involved in the strike. He also did not confirm that it happened in Venezuela. U.S. Southern Command says 2 people were killed yesterday in the latest U.S. military attack on an alleged drug boat. Officials say the vessel was traveling along a known narco-trafficking route and was engaged in narco-trafficking operations. This was the 30th such strike since September. Critics of the strike, such as Senator Rand Paul, have described them as extrajudicial killings.
To discuss President Trump's latest actions towards Venezuela, joining us is Joshua Phillip, senior investigative reporter for the Epoch Times and host of Crossroads on Epoch TV. So Josh, good to see you. As always, President Trump said yesterday that the U.S. hit an area in Venezuela where boats are loaded with drugs. And this marks the first known instance that the U.S. military has struck Venezuelan land. Can I ask you, is the Trump administration escalating its counter-narcotics operation?
Yeah, the Trump administration absolutely is escalating these counter-narcotics operations, which, again, it's designating them as anti-terrorist operations. So the Cartel of the Suns, working with Tren de Aragua, both gangs designated by the United States as international terrorist organizations, they're the ones running the show with this. And I would say not only does this probably represent the first of, I would say, many coming operations in Venezuela, this is also a shot over the bow to other surrounding countries. One of the big ones being Colombia. Colombia is trying to stir the pot right now, threatening Trump, talking about these things. Trump's telling them that we know the locations of every single one of their drug facilities. He's threatening to bomb those. He told Mexico, actually, even recently, that America knows the locations, even the home addresses, basically of all the leaders of the cartels. And so Trump, it looks like, is going to start running these operations to destroy cartels all throughout Latin America. And his previous statements when he was on the campaign trail was, any country that does not work with us on it, he will expose the connections of the government officials or the organizations, whatever it is, to the cartels, which is a big problem throughout most of the Latin American region.
Okay, so Josh, you're saying that this could lead to many more operations in Venezuela. What would be the impact of that? Would there be any concerns with it?
The only impact you're going to have is the media crying foul about it. And, politically, you have some pushback. But no, it's really nothing. Again, if you remember back during the war in Afghanistan or war in Iraq, America was doing strikes of this all the time on terrorist organizations. Barack Obama, former president, he was called, he used to use drones for just about everything. They called him the bomber-in-chief a few times. And so the same types of things, the double tap, quote unquote, operations, they strike a vehicle, guys get out, they strike them again, they crawl for their lives, they strike them again. We watched that over and over again in video footage of strikes like that, going back to the Bush and Obama administrations. the designation of the cartels, including the ones in Venezuela, and notably including most of the Venezuelan leadership, including Maduro himself, they are effectively under the same designation as any other terrorist organization. And I don't think this is going to be a ground war. I think you're going to be watching us just bomb them. You might have some special operations forces abductions or operations to, take people out, but most of it's going to be drone bombings.
Okay, can you just expand on that point where you said the Maduro regime is involved in some capacity in the drug trafficking? How involved are we talking about here? Would you be able to talk specifics at all?
Yeah, so it's interesting. A lot of this is being framed right now as a Trump policy. But if you go back to the Biden administration, they had the exact same policy. The Biden administration designated and had referred to Nicolas Maduro as the leader of the cartel of the Suns. The Biden administration said that he was the unofficial leader of the country. He was an unofficial cartel leader, and the true government was the Venezuelan government in exile, which was recognized by the United States. In fact, towards the end of the Biden administration, they said that we would, maybe not do it, but there would be a regime change in Venezuela. Trump has just continued that same policy. This was a bipartisan, very much agreed upon policy. Nicolas Maduro is known to be the leader of the cartel of the Suns. He's worked with FARC, notably when he had his whole mass protests against him in 2018, 2019. He used FARC and other militia groups to kill protesters. That was when Trump, in his first term in office, was talking about military intervention in Venezuela, and when Russia sent 2 nuclear-capable bombers there and told America that if we intervened, that the consequences would be catastrophic. And Trump actually backed off. Russia's not coming to the rescue this time. Maduro, whether one way or another, and Trump's saying it now, he's on his way out. And again, basically, according to U.S. designation, he's the equivalent legally of Osama bin Laden. They could send troops down there, grab him, and dump him in the ocean if they wanted to, under legal grounds, with very little pushback aside from just criticism.
Okay, Josh, as well, you're an expert when it comes to China, so I want to ask you a China-related question. So Beijing recently voiced support for Venezuela. What role does China play in this situation? How dependent is Venezuela on China?
In my opinion, China and Russia are the 2 main pictures of Venezuela. And I would say actually what you're watching right now is not about oil, it's not about drugs, it's about the battle of who runs Latin America. So the United States has applied a policy going back to the early 1800s called the Monroe Doctrine. Basically, no new European colonies in the Americas. North America, Central America, South America. No European colonies involved. That went into the Cold War. That was the basis of the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was the basis of us trying to keep the Russians out of Latin America. Maduro was Chavez, Hugo Chavez was the main one who changed that, working together with Fidel Castro. Hugo Chavez, the former leader of Venezuela, who handpicked Maduro as his successor, created various organizations throughout Latin America, which pushed out the United States. It was intergovernmental agreements to not engage with America, no military engagement, no business engagement, push America out, get rid of the Monroe Doctrine, and bring China in its stead. And what they did was the Chinese Communist Party, the Belt and Road Initiatives, a lot of the pilot programs were in Venezuela. They were the beachhead to bring Chinese influence into the entire Latin American region, as they ran other organizations and operations to facilitate, election organizations, cartel organizations, drug organizations, killing political rivals, getting their guys in place, and effectively conquering all of Latin America, not just through China, but it's just this kind of socialist, deeply communistic type of government, what they call the pink wave. That was a big part of it. And so China actually has basically replaced the United States in most of Latin America. And Venezuela is the linchpin with this. Venezuela is like the key piece with all of this. They pull that out, a lot of Chinese influence goes out the window. And I would say also it's no coincidence that what is the United States saying in its national defense strategy? They're saying we're going to bring back the Monroe Doctrine. That is the narrative right now.
Okay, Josh, just one final question here. If we're looking back to when this administration started, Special Presidential Envoy Rick Grinnell met with Venezuela's Maduro in January, and 6 Americans were freed during that visit. Is this conflict we're seeing now unavoidable, and what does the U.S. want ultimately for Venezuela?
The United States wants regime change for Venezuela. Part of the Monroe Doctrine is building up friendly nation states. The opposition government, the government in exile, is a U.S.-friendly government. When Maduro is ousted, they will put that in power, I guarantee it. The Venezuelan people already voted for it. Trump and even Biden have stated that their position is that Maduro stole the election. Neither Democrats nor Republicans recognized him as the winner of the election. So the government in exile was the real winner. You had mass protests in Venezuela. Maduro killed them, shooting people point blank, kicking down doors, dragging people out of their homes, put down the mass protests using FARC, a narco-terrorist organization, and using militias. And so the Venezuelan people would likely support that. But the other big thing, too, there was almost a broader war in Latin America. Right before Trump and the U.S. started bombing these drug boats, just a couple months prior to it, Maduro was about to start a war with Guyana, working with Brazil. They passed into law saying they had the right to seize the parts of, again, just north of them in Guyana, where some of the largest oil reserves in the world were discovered. Had they done that, they had already moved their military to the border. They were holding live fire exercises. They already moved their Navy right next to the oil platforms, including the Exxon ones, which were U.S. interest, of course. And they were going to invade the country. That war was likely stopped because of these bombings of the boats and the targeted attacks on the leadership of the Maduro regime.
Well, all right, Josh, I mean, what can I say? Insightful as always. And in fact, I learned a lot. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Hey, pleasure. Thank you.
Russia says it will toughen its stance in the peace talks after Ukraine allegedly tried to attack President Putin's residence on Sunday night. But so far, the Kremlin is not providing any evidence of the alleged attack. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the latest.
Russia on Tuesday again saying it will toughen its stance in the peace talks with Ukraine. That's over an alleged attempt by Ukraine to hit President Vladimir Putin's residence in the night from Sunday to Monday.
This is indeed a terrorist act aimed at disrupting the negotiations. The diplomatic consequences of these actions will be a tougher negotiating position of the Russian Federation.
Russia says Ukraine fired over 90 long-range drones at Putin's residence. But so far, Russia has not provided any pictures or physical evidence to back up the claim.
And I don't think there needs to be any evidence here. As for the drone wreckage, I can't say. That's more a matter for our military to deal with.
Russia's claim of a Ukrainian attack came just one day after Kiev said most parts of a possible peace deal were almost completely agreed on.
We have great achievements, 20-point peace plan, 90% agreed, and U.S.-Ukraine security guarantees 100% agreed. U.S.-Europe-Ukraine security guarantees almost agreed. Military dimension 100% agreed.
And Kiev accuses Russia of attacking Black Sea ports and firing at civilian ships on Tuesday. According to the Ukrainian Navy, 2 Panama-flagged civilian vessels were attacked by Russian drones as they tried to load wheat. But despite the back and forth, Russia says it won't leave the peace negotiations. Talks between Russia and the US are expected to take place soon. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
A campaign group is seeking to either reform or replace the World Health Organization, a project aligned with the goals of the Trump administration. The U.S. is exiting the WHO early next year, citing concerns over funding and CCP influence, and wants a new organization to better fill the global health role. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson brings us more.
The United States is due to withdraw from the World Health Organization on January 22nd, citing numerous issues the Trump administration says the WHO has failed to correct. Campaign Group Action on World Health is reviewing the WHO with the end goal to either reform or replace it. Their chief executive, David Roach, highlighted the WHO's funding model.
Now the United States is leaving, the largest funder has become Bill Gates through the Gates Foundation, and the second largest funder is the Gavi Vaccine Alliance. Now between the two of them, they're representing 25% of the whole funding model for the WHO.
the WHO has become increasingly reliant on, quote, specified voluntary contributions from the private sector, governments, and public-private alliances. These earmarked funds make up a larger part of its budget than the core fees paid by member states, and are directed to causes of the donors' choosing.
You have to be able to trust that when the WHO is giving its advice, when it's formulating policy, it's doing so objectively, and it's not doing so because people or organizations have bought influence.
Political influence is also a major concern, particularly from the Chinese Communist Party. A December 2024 report by the House Oversight Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic described the WHO's response to the pandemic as an abject failure, saying it yielded to pressure from the CCP and placed China's political interests ahead of the WHO's international duties. Roach said WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus got far too close to the CCP.
And that's because Dr. Tedros was essentially China's pick, and is China's pick. He, very early on in the pandemic response, was praising China for its actions. He was praising them for lockdowns. And he actually said that this is a model that the rest of the world should behold and should follow.
Speaking in November at a conference hosted by the campaign group Together Association, National Institutes of Health Director Jay Bhattacharya said the US leaving the WHO is a challenge to the, quote, ecosystem that produced the panic during the pandemic.
If we can replace the WHO, and this is the goal that the United States has, to replace the WHO with a structure that actually cares about the health of the world's public.
Roach said action on World Health's independent review panel will say which is the best route to take, to radically reform the WHO or completely replace it with a new organization.
Both of these options could potentially be quite expensive, quite difficult to do. It requires on the consent of member states. But we've got to do this because the WHO as it exists today cannot continue to fester in the way that it has been for quite some time now.
Action on World Health is expecting to finish its review of the WHO early next year. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, UK.
Shenyun Performing Arts is kicking off its 2026 Asian tour in Taiwan. Taiwan's president and more than 100 officials sent their congratulations to the New York-based classical Chinese dance group. We have more news after this break.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits zero, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
We come from a long line of farmers, and
There's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses, but there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
Shenyun Performing Arts is about to start its 2026 Asia tour. The New York-based classical Chinese dance company was welcomed in Taiwan by fans, along with congratulatory messages from Taiwan's president and more than 100 officials. Take a look.
The New York-based classical Chinese dance company aims to revive China's 5,000 years of traditional culture, carrying its mission across the world.
We're really grateful to Taiwan for always being supportive of us over the years and giving us so much support and making us feel very at home here when we perform.
Coming to Asia to perform and being able to return to my hometown makes me feel especially emotional. For me, Shenyun is not just a performing arts company, but a cultural inheritance and a spiritual mission.
President Lai Ching-te issued a special message congratulating Shenyun on its performances. Taiwan's foreign minister, legislative speaker, and other central and local government leaders, more than 120 officials in total, also sent congratulatory messages.
When people see our show, they become very clear on what Chinese culture is. It's a very spiritual, deep, traditional culture, and it's very different from what the Communist Party has made of China in modern times.
As Shenyun approaches its 20th anniversary in 2026, this marks the company's 18th visit to Taiwan. Beginning on December 30th, Shenyun will stage 33 performances across 7 major cities over the next 2 months. Fans say they are eagerly anticipating the new production.
I'm very excited and really looking forward to this year's new performance. I truly admire them for traveling all the way from New York to Taiwan to revive Chinese culture.
NTD News, Taoyuan, Taiwan.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again plan for 2026 has been released. So far, what has RFK Jr. achieved? Also, we'll discuss some obstacles lying ahead. Stay with us.